I've gotten asked quite a lot over my time on YouTube here about where if I'm going to compete, if I'm ever going to go to a competition, powerlifting competition, and compete. And I've kind of said along the lines of, oh, maybe one day, but not right now. Like I want to be able to kind of be at the top level, move some proper figures, and then I can maybe go over there and see where I'm at. But now I'm of the opinion, basically, that I'm never going to go to a competition in my life. There's just absolutely no point. And there's a few reasons for that, but the number one reason is the drugs. Over the last few years of kind of like being really into, squatting and I guess powerlifting, kind of get strong in these three lifts, I've kind of learned things that have kind of just completely changed my perception of competition and sports in general. I've assumed, my assumptions are that the top of all sports, basically the most popular sports, there's some sort of doping going on. Whether it be basketball, whether it be cycling, powerlifting, strongman, whatever, people are on something. I've met people in my life, through work as well, who, when you ask them about their medical history and whatever, they tell you they're on performance enhancing drugs and they don't even work out that hard. They're just on something so they can maximize the stuff they have, all the exercise. They can maximize all the stuff, all the time in the gym. They just take some D-ball or whatever. They just take some so low level performance enhancer just so they can have a bit of an extra kind of benefit. Most people right now who are in the vicinity of the top of their sport are on something. I grew up playing basketball, right? And, I'm from Europe, born in Croatia, lived in Serbia, 10 years old, come to Australia. All about basketball all the time. And then through over the years, more and more European basketball players were going to the NBA. I always kind of followed the NBA. They were the best league in the sport. And then over the years, you kind of have these European players come into the league, one after the other. And then now the kind of game's kind of morphed into more of a European game where you have everybody on the court can dribble, pass, shoot the ball. There was a stretch 4, stretch 5, kind of, people can shoot, tall people can shoot. Whereas back in the day, only a few big people were actually skilled enough to shoot a jump shot more than a meter out. You know what I mean? So now we're seeing the NBA evolving. But one thing that I always kind of wondered about was how come these European players, you never see, you look at the European guys playing in Europe, and they all look like normal people, just tall. They're like normal looking dudes in terms of physique. They're just tall and they can play basketball. But then you watch the NBA guys, right? And everyone's jacked. Everyone's got muscle veins running over their shoulders. They're all muscly as hell, big traps. They look like freaking wrestlers, some of them. Really strong bodies. I always used to wonder, what the hell is going on? How come these guys are, is it just the training? Are these people in Europe not training? Is it something different? Are these people not going to the gym? All of these thoughts were kind of happening in my mind for a very long time. There's weightlifters in Europe who are strong, There's all sorts of people. It's not just the European gene is bad. You know what I mean? There's people in Europe who go to the gym and. So I always used to see that difference. I always used to wonder, the Olympics rocks up, and then you have Dwight Howard, you got Shaq, you got Karl Malone, you got all these dudes, posting up, Divac and all these European guys. I followed Yugoslavia and whatever. And it just looks like something's not right here, man. How can this guy be so much more muscular and still play the same sport? You can make the argument that they're training differently. After years and years of observing these type of things, I've come to the realization there's something murky going on here. And the murkiness started with bodybuilding. I don't know how many times, the golden era, how many interviews I've seen growing up, everyone knew about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Everyone wanted to have biceps like him, chest, lats, all that stuff. I don't know how many times I would watch, this is as a kid, I'd watch interviews, by some of these classic bodybuilders. And when the question comes up about drugs, they're always no, no way, why would I ruin my health? It's all about diet and hard training. And I used to believe that. I used to believe that you could attain these things just by working hard. This reminds you of Clarence Kennedy. He made a couple of videos about this very topic. Put his whole life into weightlifting. Got to like 16, 17, 18 years old, started peeking over the fence, started looking at the international level, and he quickly realized there was something different about those guys. Those guys were going an extra mile to get where they were, and not in terms of effort, in terms of taking drugs. If you haven't checked out that video, go check it out, because he has a really good argument about, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with it, but he's against anti-doping, basically making the argument that there is no point hiding what's happening here. Everybody's on drugs, and these agencies which are there to prevent people from taking drugs or catch people are just so overwhelmed by the money in sports that these agencies don't have a toenail of the money these super athletes have. LeBron James probably earns more money than all of WADA together. World Anti-Doping Association. LeBron James probably has a bigger income than them. So you're telling me LeBron can't pay world-class leaders in biochemistry to work out how to bypass some of these things? You're telling me that you can't pay off a whole host of officials so he never gets tested? Have you ever thought about why in the NBA you never hear about people getting done for drugs? Recently, there was one high-profile guy, Deontay Ayton, whatever his name is, number 1 overall pick a few years ago, plays for Phoenix Suns center. He got down for some performance-enhancing drug. You never hear it. You know, is LeBron getting tested? LeBron is top 2 of all time, according to me. Michael Jordan's the best. LeBron James is working he's probably worked harder than Michael Jordan in his game. He is a physical phenom, absolute savant of basketball. I'm not trying to discredit him for anything. But at 38, 39 years old, to be 110, 115 kilos, shredded, with deltoids popping out, year-round physique like that, without any pharmaceuticals, I struggle to believe that. There was a story about Michael Jordan getting bounced by the Pistons, and then one off-season, he comes back after 3-4 months off, he's like 30, 40 pounds more muscular. When's the last time you ever heard about anybody putting on 20 kilos of muscle, 15 kilos of muscle in a 3-4 month span? Lean. This is not fat. This is not your bulking bro split up shit where people are, putting on more fat than muscle. No, this is a supreme athlete, sub 10% body fat, putting on 20 kilos of weight, of muscle. This, at 32 years old, I know this is not possible. This is not possible to do naturally. And for all those interviews that I saw, Arnold Schwarzenegger look into the camera and say, it is all about diet and exercise. Fuck you. And fuck all of the guys in the whole era for lying to the people. If you are a fake natty and you're lying to the people and misleading people into believing that this something that you have is attainable, fuck you. It is an absolute travesty that this still exists. Because when I was 12 years old, I saw something that I thought I'm going to try and attain. And then to have my heart broken at the end of it, you can't attain that because you need drugs. Clarence Kennedy talked about this very well. He was clean growing up, whatever. And then he realized that in order for him to go to the next level, he needs to take drugs. And now it's quite obvious that he's taking drugs. But he's not competing. I just think when you are an idol, when you're somebody that the kids look up to, you have a responsibility. And if you are cheating people, scamming people into thinking that something is attainable but it's not, for what? For money? I remember watching WWE or WWF back in the day. I used to think to myself that was proper fighting or whatever. I was a kid, whatever. Like 11, 12 years old, I realized that it wasn't. But it took me way, 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 way longer to realize that the classic bodybuilders were on something. Why would I believe anything else? On camera, they're saying it's all about diet and nutrition and it's all about working hard. So I'm here freaking doing supersets, drop sets, all this shit. Man, you can't do anything to get this shit. No matter what I did. Before starting strength, before getting into powerlifting and strength sports, I was into bodybuilding like any other bro that comes into the gym. And I seriously thought I could look like some of these guys. And then we all plateau. And then we're like, oh, what's going on? Why? I'm never going to compete because this world is full of cheats. This world is full of people who are going to sell their mothers, sell their souls for a buck. And we have ruined sports across the board because LeBron James making $30-40 million a year gives him power to ruin the sport that he's playing in. Why? Because he's too powerful. LeBron James is more important to basketball more than all of Los Angeles Lakers. He's too powerful. Coaches now get sacked because the main player doesn't like him. The salaries are so out of whack now. These people are commodities. These people make money, sell jerseys, sell out stadiums. This is why they have more power. And we give him $30-40 million a year. He's chasing Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time. You're telling me he's not going to give himself the best opportunity? You know, the best scientists around him, the best. I wish there was a world where it was all clean. I wish there was a world where it was all honest. And I could tell my son and daughter, if you want to be the greatest in a sport, it's all about working hard. And I say that to myself sometimes as well. But the truth of the matter is that you can never get to the top level without taking drugs. There's a story, Lance Armstrong, right? He lied to everyone for many, many years. It was a whole system. It wasn't just him. It was like top 50 guys were on shit. He was just the best one, best cyclist to be on gear, and that's what happened. But he won everything. He won everything 50 million times. And it was only by chance that he got exposed by the doctor that was treating him for his testicular cancer. They kind of exposed him because, he kind of disclosed his medical information that he was kind of doping and whatever, blah, 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 blah. And that's how she found out, and she wasn't part of the crew that was kind of with him. She leaks it out, or he leaks it out, whoever the person was, and that's how that was the start of his downfall. But there was another story about Stuart O'Grady, Australian cyclist who went to Tour de France or whatever. Really, really, really good cyclist. Goes to Tour de France. This is the first time. Goes to like a training session or something, like a warm-up session, like in the weeks prior, and goes up with some of these boys. He's cycling through the hills, whatever, and he couldn't even keep up in the training session. And he thought to himself, man, what is going on here? Shortly after that, he learned these people are on something. He took him a little while to realize that there's no honest people here at the top. If you want to compete with these boys, you got to join the club. And joining the club means it's not just about training. So my frustration with all of this is that the essence of sport, the spirit of sport has been lost. It's completely derailed because there's too much money in it. And when there's too much money, everything's changed. Me going to a powerlifting meet makes no sense to me. Do you understand? Like I've said this people who are not training very hard, not even like a quarter of what I'm doing, are taking gear. So then once a week when they go and do the biceps and chest, they can maximize those gains. So we got the top of the top taking serious drugs, and you got some bloke who just wants to fill out a t-shirt so he can pick up a chick at the club. He's also taking drugs. They're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. And everyone's always looking for some sort of shortcut, for some sort of advantage, so they can say, oh, I'm just a fucking specimen. I was born to be like this. So me, after honestly training for 7 years and getting to 205 kilo squat by eating, sleeping, drinking water, going to my work, just normal, honest life, I get to 205. And there are boys out there, 19, 20 years old, who are squatting 300. What am I supposed to do? Why would I disrespect myself like that? Knowing what I know right now, to go to competition, do what? What am I going to do over there? Now, I'm saying all of that in just to try to explain to you where I am thinking about all this stuff. Don't get me wrong, man. I still love to squat. I still have ambitions to squat like Clarence Kennedy, even though Clarence Kennedy is on gear. But I still love this, even without the recognition, the trophies. Oh, Ivan's the best squatter in South Australia. Oh, Ivan's the best squatter in Australia. Oh, Ivan's going to the Nationals. I don't need that because I know what that level's about. It's just wherever I look, there's some shit going on. Where there's money, there are cheats. you know, your sporting spirit, essence, doesn't matter. It's about the money. People who are after money are they're going to sell their mothers to get to money. So taking a course of antibiotics, taking a course of steroids to get a bit ahead so they can get a sponsorship or get ahead, get recognition, get clout, social media. Oh my God, get my shit. Sponsors are coming out of the woodworks to come pay me money because I can squat 300 kilos, ATG, perfect form. We all have a platform now. All you got to do now is just get it out there. Blast some gear, work on some ability, pause 300 at the bottom, and squat that shit up. Just keep on. Start with 500 milligrams of testosterone per week. Then go to a gram, go to 2 grams, go to 5 grams. Put some insulin in. Take some growth hormone as well. Take all that shit. Take some insulin. Take all that shit. Take some SARMs. SARMs is like a new thing that not long ago I learned about. Selective androgen receptor modulators or something. I think it's something like that. It's kind of like a steroid without some of the severe side effects. So you can walk around looking like you don't even look like that jacked, you know, but strong like an animal. I had somebody in my life tell me a story, somebody that's used drugs, and we were talking about, you know, my ambitions of squatting 300 kilos and deadlifting 300 kilos or whatever. And he was basically telling me, man, you know, back overseas when I was home, he said, you know, I was into bodybuilding, whatever, and somebody said, look, just take these tablets. You know, I think it was Dianabol. I can't exactly remember. It was an oral steroid. I don't know if Dianabol is oral. I'm not even that in tune with it. But he was taking oral steroid, and he said he took it for 12 weeks. And he, you know, he's into bodybuilding. He's not even interested in, like, you know, powerlifting at all. He's just interested in getting bigger. And he said at the start of the program, he just knows kind of the ballpark figures. He was around 140, 150 kind of kilo deadlift. Like, he wasn't even training it. He said after 12 weeks and training maybe the deadlift like once every fortnight or something like this, just not even in his routine. He was more, like I said, about the pump. After the 12 weeks, his deadlift was around 240, 250 kilos. He said, I never felt better. Mentally, I felt so confident, so happy with myself. I felt so strong. I felt so confident. And when I that one day that I kind of went to kind of do deadlifting, and he was like, I was repping out 150 like it was nothing. It was like my body rep max before. He did 250 kilos deadlift without even like training the deadlift. He says to me, dude, what's your deadlift? Oh, at the time my deadlift was 220. He said to me, if you get on a 12-week cycle of the shit that I was on, after 12 weeks, he goes, across my heart, you're going to have a 300 kilo deadlift. That was probably the first time somebody actually gave me some sort of impression of what it is, what are the effects are of these kind of steroids in terms of performance. Like, I've always kind of known that you can get bigger, whatever, and it's all kind of subjective. But objectively, to understand how strong you can get, taking 12 weeks of this steroid, just take it 12 weeks, get to 300 and just never use it again. Never use it again. In 3 years' time, you can go in your competition. I was never going to know anything. This is where, once you take a steroid or once you take a cycle, you are never natural ever again. There are certain things that happen within our bodies, and I'm not an expert at this, but this is how I think about it. If you've taken the steroid, you know, your cells basically divide really quickly with steroids. You know, your androgens just flying through the roof, and you get stronger, you get bigger. But these nuclei, so cell division happens, right? Cell division happens rapidly. But these nuclei that form with these new cells, they don't really go away after you come off the gear. It's kind of like what 3D talks about, like the channel talks about, I forget now there's a training method that people use to get really big, overload or something like this. Basically, you take steroids, you get stronger, you develop these nuclei throughout all of your muscles, right? Which never disappear. And even when you get off the gear, all of those cells kind of like start to kind of wash away, whatever, but the nuclei kind of stay there. Like they don't disappear out of your system. So you're never going to be a fully natural ever again. You're never going to go back to forget some of these terminologies, it's escaping me right now, but you never go back to kind of the full natty status. Once you've taken drugs, you're never going to be the same ever again. Even though you might kind of fall off, when you're using steroids, you fall off a little bit, you never go back to ground zero. This is the trouble with sports. The top people are usually the most driven, the most willing to sacrifice, the hardest working, the hungriest. It is these people that would take drugs in a heartbeat to beat that opponent. I'm sure Michael Jordan was hurting like hell when the Pistons beat him again. They were fouling him hard. You know how bad boy Pistons were. They were just muscling everyone out and smashing everyone. So Jordan was, rather slim guy. Comes back like, 30, 40 pounds heavier the next season. And we're not talking about fat here. We're talking about built, lean, sub 10% kind of athlete. When's the last time you heard somebody naturally putting on 40 pounds of weight without fat, muscle, over a summer? It's just impossible. Like, I know very well what it is to work out for 7 years, and I know very well what a human body is capable of. Normal people don't look like that. It just doesn't happen that way. There's just no point competing. There's absolutely no point, because the whole system's rigged. The whole system is... There's no spirit anymore, man. People don't give a shit. People are just all about money. And that's basically it. That's basically my answer to all of that. I'll never compete for those reasons. And a side kind of issue of that is that powerlifting is a sport that it's something that I don't really like anyway. People are squatting, half squatting. They're not full squatting. It's a half squat. The sumo deadlift, I've kind of appreciated more over the recent times, but I feel like that's not a standard. If you're going to have a standard of strength testing, you can't have variation like that. Some guys benching like this, benching like this. So he's holding the bar in his hands so freaking wide that all he's got to do now is just raise his chest to the bar. So he's moving the bar this much. That's a bench press, 250 kilo bench press. It looks like shit. Doesn't even have triceps. He doesn't even use triceps. He's not using triceps. And the geared powerlifters, 1 ply, 2 ply, 3 ply, rap, second rap, fourth rap, 5 reps, 6 reps, suit. Just grab yourself a forklift, drive it onto the stage, onto the platform, and use the forklift to do the work for you. What is the point of this sport? What is the point of geared powerlifting? So the right competition, that doesn't even exist for me. I do full squats. I do proper bench press with a relatively flat back. There's a bit of an arch, but I'm not doing this. My back is not like this. And I'm not doing splits and moving the bar this much up my legs. The whole spirit of powerlifting is also just, there's so much variation. People are using leverages to move weight. It's like, we can see what you're doing, man. We can see what you're doing with this shitty bench press technique. You are basically telling us you are cheating the sport right in front of us. For what? So you can be number one and you get some sponsorships. We all know that you're not strong doing this. And powerlifting has always been, for me, it's like, who's the strongest guy? So if he was to go to a footy field or a basketball, court, he'll be like, he's got potential. This guy that's benching like this, he's got nothing, man. What's he got? Is that a usable human movement? It's not. Absolutely not. Why aren't people squatting ass to grass? Why is it a full squat? Why is it a half squat? Who made up that rule? Why? Why can't we squat all the way? So you want me to go over there, squat against a guy who's squatting, I don't even know, like some of these competitions give people 3 lights, and I'm like, I don't know, like it just looks so obvious that it's a quarter squat. The hip crease is nowhere near the knee, and they pass it. It's got nothing to do with quads. He just sticks his ass back as far as possible, and then he stands up. And then he just, that's not a squat. A squat is like, see, I've got fundamental problems with the sport of powerlifting. So one, a competition doesn't exist for me to go and compete properly. And number two, if it existed and I went over there, I'm going against guys who are cheats, who are using drugs, who are fake natties, and who are fake natties. So they're not telling people anything. Those things are just, they drive me up the wall, and I could never go to a place like that. It's just, I'm not like that, and that's my realization. I'm never gonna compete like that. And that's basically it. I'm happy that I've kind of made that decision in my head, and there's nothing for me to gain over there. There's no, sporting spirit. People are just out there to cheat and get clout and get money. I don't know what they're gonna do with so much money. Just get more money and tell people lies and tell 12-year-old boys you can achieve something naturally, which they can't. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.